Juneteenth is about celebrating Black freedom, power, resilience, and excellence. Welcome to Juneteenth, Unity in Our Community, a newsstand special, sponsored by the Lansing Juneteenth Committee and a touch of tint.
Welcome everyone. We are proud to present this year's Unity in Our Community Juneteenth special. I'm Deanna Giles.
And I'm Rochelle Legrand. In this hour, we're going to show you the change makers and those pushing for inclusion, diversity, and unity right here in mid-Michigan. But in order to truly celebrate this holiday, we have to understand the history behind it. Juneteenth represents Black freedom and the official end of slavery here in the United States. On this full day, 159 years ago, slaves in Galveston, Texas were told that they were free. And now in 2024, we celebrate our freedom every year. But this day not only represents freedom, it also represents unity and empowerment. One of the great civil rights leaders, Malcolm X, has ties right here in mid-Michigan. And today, his legacy of equality and justice is still making an impact. Before he was Malcolm X, he was known here in mid-Michigan as Malcolm Little. When he was young, the civil rights activist lived in Lansing with his family and spent time in Mason as a young teenager. In 2022, a historical home site marker was erected on South Martin Luther King Boulevard to honor the Little family. And now, in 2024, the Ingham County Land Bank is demolishing the former Pleasant Grove School where Malcolm X attended kindergarten in order to address some of the biggest needs in South Lansing, like more local businesses, financial services, and health care.
The critical thing is that the Ingham County health clinics have committed to placing a county health clinic here. The Ingham County Health Department has said that this is a healthcare desert.
And even though Malcolm X is no longer with us, his will to fight for others and the need to ensure that those who have gone without get what they deserve still inspires others. The Ingham County Land Bank plans to use materials from the building to create a Malcolm X memorial to honor his legacy.
An Okemos High School senior is using her voice and a few dance moves to address the issue of gun violence. She says the song is more than just a whimsical melody. Take a listen.
There's some bull elephants in a room you can't see, but their words are abundantly clear.
Okemos High School senior Tanyade Shara says the song is a clear message addressing the issue of gun violence. Tanyade joined forces with Rob Blankenhorn and created the Bull Elephant song as a response to the Okemos shooting hoax and the MSU mass shooting. The video is filled with colors of red, white, and green, symbolizing blood, innocence, and money. She says every animation and voice was intentional, including the voice of a 4-year-old child. Tanyade believes there needs to be more attention to the issue of gun violence and says a music video might just start those conversations.
Listen, please listen, oh listen, please listen to me.
Everybody's voice matters. If you listen to everybody, you will be able to kind of have a better understanding of other people and how it affects them.
If you want to hear the entire music video and learn more about the cause behind it, we have a link on WILX.com.
This year also marks 70 years since Brown v. Board of Ed, the Supreme Court ruling that ended segregation in schools. The landmark decision ruled that separate but equal was inherently not equal. And right here in Lansing, a battle for equality amongst students and administration was also being fought. This hour, we're honoring Dr. Olivia Letts and her fight for change that made her the first Black teacher and Black principal in the Lansing School District.
This letter is dated March 9th, 1951, and it's directed to Miss Davis, which was my mother's maiden name. We were very glad to receive your application for a position in Lansing. However, I think I should explain to you that the Lansing schools do not generally employ people of your race for teaching positions.
73 years later, Eileen Letts reflects on a rejection letter mailed to her mother.
And we are in the process now of trying to find an upstanding person to be first one employed.
That upstanding person eventually was her mother.
So my father then advocated with some other people to be a teacher here, and she became the first Black teacher in the Lansing School District in 1951.
From school teacher to principal to director of elementary education, Dr. Letts worked her way up in the Lansing School District. She opened doors for Black educators and worked to put an end to school segregation. But it didn't come without struggle.
You don't start a job as the only Black person and not have a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome.
Lansing education advocate Barbara Roberts Mason discusses the challenges educators faced in the 1960s.
I had been in so many schools in Lansing that I knew the differences in the schools, and I could tell how the disparate treatment of kids in the schools in the black neighborhoods, they were different. They were not as clean. The curriculum in many instances wasn't as good. They didn't have as much in terms of equipment.
But that didn't stop Olivia, the staff, and the students' hope for change.
She cared about them to the point that she cared about their parents, because she knew that some of them were coming to school without breakfast, without lunch. She cared about them because she knew that some of their parents couldn't read. So how do we bring parents in and help parents to be able to help their children more? That's the kind of a person Olivia was. You don't just deal with one little thing. It's a whole composite of issues.
Barbara tells me Olivia tackled those issues each with strength that inspired those around her.
Olivia becoming the first principal was the best thing that could have happened to Lansing, because the kids whom she taught were strengthened by her. The teachers with whom she worked were strengthened by her, and that led to the next generation,
including Daniel Bogan III.
It was always my goal to go to college as of 8th grade, and having people like Mr. Letts and his wife to be around to inspire you to do those things in our community, that was very powerful.
And he's continuing the work that Dr. Letts started.
If we focus on making things better as human beings, we'll continue to strive and build a strong educational system here in Lansing and in our country.
Her legacy is having built a foundation for adults, for children, for youth, for the community, for the future. And it still goes on. It's still multiplying. It's still continuing.
And speaking of legacies, Deanna's sitting down with one Supreme Court justice who's creating a legacy of her own.
Justice for today and generations to come. Supreme Court Justice Kyra Harris Bolden now joins us to share her experience as the first black woman to sit on the Michigan Supreme Court. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now, what was the driving force to you becoming the Supreme Court Justice that you are today?
Yeah, so I've been very vocal about my journey. I actually received a degree in psychology. And my great-grandmother told me the story of my great-grandfather, Jesse Lee Bond, who was lynched in Tennessee in 1939 after asking a store owner for a receipt. And he was beaten and thrown into the local river, and the coroner deemed it an accidental drowning. And as a result of that designation, his murderers walked free. And in hearing that story, it just came to light how much injustice has occurred in our country, and I wanted to be a part of the change. We're kind of the beacon of light or new generation of leaders to say, you know, we believe in justice. And I decided to go to law school and pursue justice because I wanted other families to see justice in a way that my family had not seen justice.
Now, when you talk about doing more, tell me about some of your big achievements on the court so far.
So I'm very proud that so far I've been able to author 3 majority opinions, 1 unanimous. And actually one of my opinions has been cited over 70 times. So just very impactful opinions that have come out. The other part of my job is I serve as the treatment court liaison as well as the child welfare liaison to the task forces from the Michigan Supreme Court. And so it is my job to bring people together, identify problems in these areas and figure out solutions and implement them so that we have better, more functioning treatment courts that are an alternative to incarceration, and also to make sure that our children that may find themselves in our system that they're taken care of and have great representation. It's so important for a lot of people to see me in this position, and so I make sure that I give back to my community, and I show up at local churches and local sorority events and just local community events so that they can see me, because that is so important.
So for our young Black men and women out there who are seeing you serving on the court, what advice do you have for them?
So the first piece of advice is, you know, it's not easy, but you know, work really hard, and obviously it's achievable, and I think that's what my representation means, that the road may not be easy, but you can do it. The other piece of advice I usually give to younger people is what's for you is for you. I think my journey is kind of a testament to, you know, when a door closes, another one will open for you, and that may be where you need to be, but also your failures can be a stepping stone to success.
All right. What's for you is for you. That is a lasting statement right there. All right. Well, that's all the time we have, but I do thank you, Justice Bolden, for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Yes. We'll go ahead and toss it back to Rochelle.
Well, thank you, Deanna. Did you also know that Justice Bolden is the youngest to serve on the court since 1960 and the only justice on the bench with a background as a state lawmaker? Well, coming up, we'll show you how a legendary coach diversified track and field at Michigan State University.
Oftentimes, medical professionals have this idea that we are exaggerating our pain or exaggerating our experiences.
That was Tanisha DeBose describing the type of health care she felt she received while she was pregnant with her daughter. According to the CDC, Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. And Black babies are more likely to be born prematurely and with health issues. Things that contribute to this include the quality of health care Black women receive, underlying chronic conditions, structural racism, and implicit bias. But here in mid-Michigan, Ingham County is doing its part to reduce the number of Black women that die during or after labor and delivery. The county has received a $200,000 grant from the Michigan Health Endowment Fund, allowing health officials to hire 26 Black doulas to support Black mothers. One doula says the most important thing is making sure that both mom and baby are healthy.
Decreasing like the length of labor time, also helping decrease rates in C-section, helping them advocate for themselves, advocating for them if needed.
The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services says that doula services have been shown to positively impact health support, birth equity, and decrease racial disparities.
Highlighting the journey to integrating college sports like football and basketball right here in the United States. MSU was a leader in breaking down social barriers to get Black and brown athletes in the game back in the 50s and 60s. News 10's Tanaya Jordan has the story.
These were some of the earlier African-American coaches here at MSU and really nationally within collegiate sports.
MSU hired its first Black head coach in 1968.
There are some Black kids probably came here because I was Black, and by the same token, I might have lost some white kids because I'm Black.
James Bibbs was head coach for men's track and field and cross country. While he integrated the sport as coach, he brought in students to integrate the sport as athletes.
Herb Washington set a world record, had 2 world records really. Marshall Dill also broke a world record for me.
From coaches to athletes, Michigan State University is one of the first schools in the U.S. to have Black men and women on a sports team.
The first Black coaches, you know, the ways in which women of color also became very kind of prominent, not only within the athletic programs, but also as coaches.
The first Black football player integrated the sport at MSU back in 1913. Gideon Edward Smith is one of only 2 Black men to play at the college level in the U.S. during that time, using history and art to spark conversations that empower future generations of athletes and coaches. In East Lansing, Tanaya Jordan, News 10.
Former Spartan football player turned assistant athletic director Darian Harris said that knowing black players were accepted in the past led his decision to play at MSU. They changed the military landscape for African Americans. Coming up, how one local college is honoring the life and service of a Tuskegee Airman.
Well, one local woman is doing her part to fight against the injustices that the black community faces today. Willie Bryan grew up in the Jim Crow South, where she saw racism firsthand. Bryan's family moved to Chicago, where she experienced a new life. Later, her family returned to the South, where she participated in sit-ins and protests demanding change. Following the death of George Floyd in 2020, Bryan created the Justice League here in Lansing in hopes of repairing the damages of racism in the community she calls home.
I decided I have to do something. I mean, I've got to not sit and watch this any longer. I have to do something. I have to make an impact.
The Justice League seeks to repair historical damage through reparations. The Justice League uplifts the community by offering educational scholarships for students, supporting black-owned businesses, and helping more people of color become homeowners, attempting to close the wealth gap.
A new piece of history has been unveiled in the Jackson community. It's the story of one Tuskegee Airman and the life he lived. I met with students at the Jackson College Heritage Center and discussed how they're honoring Roosevelt Steiger's aviation legacy.
He was a scholar, an athlete. He was courageous.
A hometown hero, once forgotten and now forever remembered.
Roosevelt Steiger, being a young African-American male here in Jackson County, being a part of a notorious group of the Tuskegee Airmen, sacrificing his life for people like us to come after.
Braden Pearson and other Jackson College students are bringing the life of Second Lieutenant Roosevelt Steiger to the forefront. Born in 1919, Steiger joined the Tuskegee Aviation Cadet Program and served in World War II. As a Purple Heart recipient, he's known as one who changed the military landscape for African Americans. Diana Agee works at the Jackson College Heritage Center and says his life was more than serving as a Tuskegee Airman.
When we were doing Roosevelt, it was a little piece here and a little piece there. He loved the Lord. He loved learning. But his mother pushed him. He had to be the best of the best of the best. We decided to create an oversized scrapbook for the community, and we designed it so that they would be drawn into his story.
Pearson says Steiger's legacy helped to pave the way for future African Americans.
Being a young African American male in college, it kind of, in a sense, allowed me in particular and a lot of other students to relate to him.
Second Lieutenant Roosevelt Steiger was part of America's first black military airmen. Now his legacy is shining bright in the Jackson community.
They work to make the invisible visible. Anytime you can find historical figures that help shape our community into what it is today, it's a great thing.
State Representative Kathy Schmaltz is honoring his life by proposing to rename a stretch of US 127 as the Second Lieutenant Roosevelt Steiger Highway. The Tuskegee Airmen continuing to pave the way for future black and brown Americans.
Nothing's difficult, everything's a challenge. Through adversity to the stars, to the last plane, to the last bullet, to the last minute, to the last man, we fight, we fight, we fight.
Although he may have been forgotten to some, he is Jackson's hometown hero.
The legislation has been referred to the State House Transportation Committee for consideration.
A local man is hoping young people put down guns and pick up hammers. How this new approach is helping prevent gun violence. News 10's Mars Anderson joins us in the studio with more. That's next on Unity in Our Community.
Juneteenth is about celebrating Black freedom, power, resilience, and excellence. Welcome to Juneteenth, Unity in Our Community, a News 10 special, sponsored by the Lansing Juneteenth Committee and a touch of tint.
So far in 2024, there have been 6 homicides in the city of Lansing, with the youngest victim being only 14 years old. More recently, a mass shooting early Memorial Day left a 17-year-old boy dead with 6 others injured. Welcome back to Unity in Our Community. I'm Mars Anderson. Gun violence is a national issue. However, it's had a major impact on the Black community. From attacks against us to attacks on one another, curbing gun violence takes several steps. For the Mikey 23 Foundation, one step is prevention. What does building a community look like?
It takes a village. If you live on a block, right, if you see a kid that's doing something over here, if the neighbors say something to that kid and that kid knows that that's going to be said to them, what happens is that kid knows he will be conscious of that.
For Michael McKissick, founder of the Mikey 23 Foundation, it starts with an opportunity.
We teach kids a building trade, right? Teach them how to build houses or rehab houses, electrical, plumbing, as well as the things that have to do with building trades. But it's a mentoring piece that people always miss.
Back in 2015, McKissick lost his son Mikey, who was just 23, to gun violence. In turn, the foundation tries to reach youth in Lansing, mainly those of color, before they go down the wrong path.
Instead of picking up a gun to commit gun violence, pick up a hammer and build up your community. You have the majority of the Black and brown are committing murder in our community, amongst each other, And that's because they're not having those opportunities. They don't have these mentors. According to Giffords Law Center, Black Americans make up 6% of the population, but experience 53% of gun-related homicides from 2018 to 2021. Through the Mikey 23 Foundation, McKissick is not only honoring his son, but giving kids like KJ Crabb a chance to do things he's never considered.
So I never really thought I would be into building and stuff. But now that I'm actually doing it and not just hearing about it, actually hands-on, it's actually pretty fun.
KJ says in the few weeks of him being in the program, he's been able to make lifelong connections.
Mike is like Unc now, so definitely, and I've definitely met a couple of new friends here.
Aaliyah Crabb says the program has furthered her interest in building and is readying her for the future.
I think it would be getting ready for us to go to different jobs and knowing, instead of going there with no knowledge, going there with knowledge and being able to level up more faster than what people would think we would be.
Jada Williams, who recently joined the program, says it teaches kids perseverance.
If you set your mind to it and you really believe that you can do it, then you can achieve anything you want. You can accomplish anything you want in life. If my mind's in it, if I'm willing to do it, then I'll be able to accomplish it.
Over the last 9 years, Mikey 23 has had over 200 participants in the program, some even choosing to work in skilled trades.
One example that came through the program. Now he's in an apprentice program with the Plumbers Association.
All it took was someone supporting, believing, and giving an opportunity. That's how you build a community.
If the youth succeed, we succeed. If they fail, we fail.
While Mikey 23 can end gun violence, is one of the many examples in Lansing devoting time to combating gun violence with a focus on youth. Additional programs include Advance Peace, Pray, and the Village Lansing. We admire the work being done to bring unity to our community.
Thank you, Mars, for sharing this powerful story.
Coming up next on Unity in Our Community, how Mid-Michigan is honoring the Black politicians of the past. Plus, meet one local student who is at the top of her class, how she's headed to the Ivy Leagues and setting an example for others. Don't go anywhere. A local high school senior has captured the attention of some of the nation's most prestigious universities.
Kelly Higgins from Jackson High School sat down with News 10's Tanaya Jordan talking about her journey to the Ivy League.
I was accepted into Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and the University of Pennsylvania.
Kelly Higgins, a senior at Jackson High School, has been accepted into 4 Ivy League universities. She called it a long process of visiting campuses, attending admitted student weeks, and learning more about each of the Ivies. With dreams of becoming a lawyer and considering the political and law opportunities, Higgins says she was ready to make a decision.
I decided on Harvard.
And then why did you choose that one?
The main reason that I decided on Harvard is because I had prior experience at the school through attending programs there, and I just really enjoyed the campus culture. Knowing that you're in the same place where former presidents studied, it just kind of gives you that mindset that I have the potential to succeed.
Higgins says she's not the first Jackson High School graduate to make it to an Ivy League, but she says she is the first person of color.
So at Jackson High, we've obviously seen people attend Ivy Leagues, be accepted into Ivy Leagues, which is very inspiring to see. However, we haven't seen someone go to Harvard, especially a black woman go to an Ivy League as well, so that was a really big deal.
Higgins says she took advanced placement classes and participated in extracurricular activities involving government and law, all while brushing up on essay writing and interview skills. During freshman year, she says she joined the mayor's youth council,
where I got to work on ordinances and just help improve the quality of life for youth in Jackson. Additionally, I have worked at the Capitol, interning with different politicians such as Senator Sue Shink.
She may not be the first student from Jackson who will be heading to the Ivies, but for her family,
I'm the first person to be attending an Ivy League, so it's very exciting for us.
Making history in her family and in the community. In Jackson, Tanaya Jordan, News 10.
Kelly Higgins leaves for Harvard University at the end of August.
The Michigan Legislative Black Caucus is highlighting the history and importance of black lawmakers in Michigan's government. Leaders say it's important to teach people about representation in politics. The faces of black Michigan legislators aline the west hallway of the state capitol, dating all the way back to the 1800s. Many of them created a path for others to walk in their footsteps. Although Executive Director Chris Jackson says there's more to just being the first.
Hopefully we can get past talking about the first and move towards talking about just its normalcy to see black people in certain elected positions and appointed positions moving forward.
Jackson added he wants to continue making representation the standard for future generations.
Racially motivated hate crimes are on the rise. Next on Unity in Our Community, how law enforcement is trying to reverse this troubling trend. One man is turning his own personal pain into purpose by helping the black community break the stigma around mental health. Kevin Fisher lost his son Dominique to an overdose in 2010. 3 years earlier, Dominique was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and struggled with his mental illness. Following his son's death, Kevin was angry and even contemplated his own suicide. But now he's doing everything he can to make sure that people know that it's okay to ask for help. Fisher is now the director of the Michigan chapter for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. This organization provides resources for people struggling with their mental illnesses.
We have to understand, and we in every community, including the African American community, have to understand mental illness is not a choice. It's not a weakness of faith or character. Mental illness is a medical diagnosis. It's a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's not your fault.
Along with being a suicide prevention advocate for others, Kevin has created a t-shirt line that says "Everybody versus Stigma" that he wears proudly, making sure people know that they are not alone.
An alarming statistic standing the test of time. Since the FBI started collecting the data, black people remain the top target of hate crimes in America. News 10's Jordan Burrell sat down with an FBI special agent to reflect on the struggles black Americans still face today.
I had a few battles to fight, but I wasn't aware it was because of my skin color.
The now federally celebrated holiday, Juneteenth, allows for black people across the country to celebrate their freedom. But the holiday comes with a grim reality. The freedom that we celebrate comes at a cost. Black Americans are the most frequent victims of racially motivated hate crimes in Michigan.
Based off of the numbers we received, yes, African Americans are, as far as under the bias categories, the most targeted out of the other races within the state of Michigan.
According to the FBI, a hate crime is defined by any crime being committed motivated by race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, and gender identity. Most commonly, hate crimes are carried out through intimidation.
And it could be, we're talking historical context now, going back many, many years. We as a society are working to get better, but that's not to say that we have solved the problem by any stretch. So intimidation still continues. Racism still continues.
Something I now know all too well. Just a month ago, I received letters in the mail from what I thought was a kind viewer. It turns out those letters contain racist hate speech and profanity, just because of the color of my skin.
This is a broken system, but it's only a mirror of America.
As the number of anti-Black crimes continues to trend upward, the FBI says tools like outreach and the ability to track these numbers are a step in the right direction.
It has been recognized that this has been a problem for decades, and it is just, at this point in time that we now have the tools in place. That the hate crimes is a priority of the FBI because an individual is impacted, but in quite often an entire community is impacted.
An entire community hoping that one day the divide between races and cultures can be closed by learning to see people for who they really are.
That bridge comes through understanding and being able to tell the story and not be so angry that we don't allow the other person to learn too.
The FBI encourages people to report racially motivated crimes. You can contact them through the information we have on screen and linked within this story on our website. Rochelle, Deanna.
Thank you for sharing this important information with us.
Yes, and we also want to thank you for being brave and transparent enough to tell your story.
Straight ahead, meet a Lansing restaurant owner who has been serving up food with soul for more than half a century. Black entrepreneurship has always been important in the Black community. Black-owned businesses provide resources to the community that people may not otherwise have access to. Here in mid-Michigan, the Lansing Economic Area Partnership is trying to ensure that Black-owned businesses continue to thrive. It's providing up-and-coming entrepreneurs with resources to get their business up and running through the Elevate program.
They get one-on-one technical assistance, they get access to LEAP's network, and they get additional capital to assist them with their CapEx spending needs. The economy does best when all people are able to participate in the economy, and Black businesses be included with that.
We're starting to rally around each other to uphold and give that business to, a specific demographic.
According to the Lansing Economic Area Partnership, since 2000, the U.S. economy has lost an estimated $16 trillion due to discrimination against Black businesses.
Gregory's Soul Food is a Lansing staple that's been feeding the community for over 50 years, serving up authentic soul food with the side of history. News 10's Amaya Kuznicki is in studio to share the restaurant's legacy and introduces us to the face behind the business.
Gregory Eaton was born and raised in the capital city. He's a proud Sexton graduate and holds an honorary degree from MSU. He was even one of the first Black lobbyists in the state. But on top of it all, he's the proud owner of one of Lansing's most sought-out soul food restaurants.
And this sort of is not only a place for people to gather, but it's history. It's Black history in Lansing.
Every wall of Gregory's Soul Food holds a memory.
And you look around the place, you see pictures of Lansing, old Lansing.
From posing with NBA legends,
I've known Magic all his life,
to meeting political figures that have shaped the U.S.
2, 3.
Gregory Eaton has done it all.
4.
And one of his proudest accomplishments, keeping his doors open for so long.
So we've been in business over 50 years. You have Chinese restaurants, Mexican restaurants, Italian restaurants, but we didn't have a Black restaurant per se.
Open since 1971, Gregory's was the first African-American owned restaurant to get their liquor license. Ever since, they've been serving up drinks, soul food, and a good time.
We call it Little LA.
But the food isn't the only thing that keeps customers coming back for more. Gregory can draw a crowd on his own.
We have to continue to let him know that we are here for him just like he's here for us.
Gregory is a father, grandfather, and business owner. But no matter the role, he's someone who leads by example.
They laugh. They say, I see him down there. He may be mopping the floor. He may be, and that's, I'm showing my employees, I'm not any better than they are. The job has to be done. We have to do it as a team.
Serving up soul food and smiles 6 days a week.
The only days we're closed is Sunday.
Bringing people together and teaching them a little bit of history. Gregory told me he plans to keep on running the business as long as he's around. He hopes to pass the restaurant on to his kids one day. Back to you guys.
Well, if you want to give Gregory's Soul Food a try, it's located on North Martin Luther King Boulevard. We'll have their hours on this story on our website, WILX.com.
A new exhibit is quilting together stories of the African American experience. You'll see it next, Unity in Our Community. Stay with us. Welcome back to our Unity and Our Community special. Mike Garland is well known in mid-Michigan. He spent many years as an assistant coach for the Michigan State men's basketball program, and now he's turning his own near-death experience into a movement to help people better be prepared to respond to cardiac arrest. 2 years ago, Garland had a heart attack while behind the wheel of his vehicle. He crashed, and if it weren't for the quick response by Good Samaritans and first responders, he may not be here today. Garland turned around and created the Champions of the Heart Foundation with his wife, Cynthia. They now work together to provide AED devices and CPR training to the community.
It just changed my whole outlook and aspect of life, you know, and the Lord has kept us busier now than we had been before.
If just one life is saved, it's well worth the time and the money and the effort that we're putting in.
Champions of the Heart aims to improve cardiac arrest survival rates. You can sign up for their classes and workshops or donate to their cause by visiting championsoftheheart.net. We have a link to it as well on our website. Just search Champions of the Heart.
And as much as Juneteenth is about honoring those who have fought for our past, it's also about those who are bringing us together to usher in the future. An exhibit at Michigan State University is weaving together those histories and futures to create a masterpiece. For generations, quilting in Black families has served as a way to tell stories of the past. But at this exhibition at MSU, the tradition is telling stories of the future. Dr. Liv Furman is an MSU professor and assistant project director of the Black Diaspora Quilt History Project. This project includes Furman's quilt, along with others in an effort to preserve Black stories and legacies that have been left out of the National Quilt Index. The quilts displayed in the MSU Union represent their Afrofuturism.
For me, Afrofuturism is many things. It's a genre, it's an aesthetic, it's a style of music, it's a style of thinking, all combining themes of African folk throughout the diaspora, as well as our people, our culture, and themes of technology and future science.
Those themes consist of
it looks like me joining hands with other people in my community. And for me, that future looks like being together with my friends, more tending to the land as stewards of the land with the right relationship, a sustainable relationship. It looks like flowers. It looks like growing our own food. It looks like us envisioning other things. It looks like us getting free in whatever that way that means for each of us as individuals.
Parts of the quilt look like Octavia Butler.
This is somebody I often look up to, like literally. And Octavia Butler wrote a lot of, fiction, like stories.
It also resembles Fannie Lou Hamer.
Is another person I look up to as an activist, as well as was like a sharecropper, like gardened and did a lot of activism regarding climate justice in the environment and Black folks' relation to it.
And includes inspiration from Janelle Monáe.
They are another, Black, queer, free body, a non-binary person who I look up to in a more kind of popular sense.
Each of them play a role in how Furman imagines their future, but the inspiration came from the past.
My first introduction to quilting was through my grandmother. That was how she got to know all of us grandkids and spend time with us. She would take us and do crafts like crocheting, like you mentioned earlier, and sewing, different types of crafts, gardening as well. And quilting was one of those skills that she taught me.
Furman's grandmother's teachings are also woven into this quilt.
And I think that's what I've learned from my grandmother. She is one of those type of people who every stitch, is not going to be just overly perfectionist, but it's still going to be beautiful.
The quilt started as Furman's dissertation project.
Instead of having a formal, empirical white Western research document, I wanted to have an art exhibition as my dissertation and be disruptive in that way, to use my own literacies to speak the truths that I wanted to tell.
But now it's flourished into an exhibit with quilters from across the country as a way to weave their culture into the past, present, and future.
So I think sometimes when you first set the dream, you don't know what it could be. The dream is more expansive than what you know initially.
You can find that exhibit at the MSU Student Union. And we want to thank you for joining us for our Juneteenth special, Unity in Our Community.
We hope that the change makers we showed today in healthcare, business, and politics have left you inspired and empowered. Happy Juneteenth.